This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Be grateful today. We know who she is.
Ashley Shinguski-Jinakazo. I think it's very important that we say her name.
For more than 3 years after she was last seen, Ashley Christine Shingus has now been confirmed as the unidentified victim of a Winnipeg serial killer. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. It's been a long journey to get to this point. For years, no one knew who Mashkade Bishike Ikwe Iban, or Buffalo Woman, was. Now we know she is Ashley Shingus. But even long before she was identified, the Indigenous community made sure she wouldn't be forgotten. CBC's Felicia Adam has more.
Symbol of an unknown woman. This buffalo headdress goes along with the name given by the Indigenous community, Mushkade Bishike Ikwe Iban.
And we said that she needs to have a name. She needs to be recognized because she's important. She matters to our community. She matters to the world. She matters to all of us. She's not going to be just that unidentified person.
Now she has her name back, Ashley Shingus, but for the last 3 years, she was known as Buffalo Woman, or Mushkade Bishike Ikwe Iban, the fourth victim of a now convicted serial killer. That name rang out in rallies and calls to search the landfill. Alongside a red dress, the buffalo headdress was brought to court every day. Thelma Morrisseau helped give the name. She says it was inspired by a buffalo spirit that spoke to her ancestor while in ceremony.
She saw our pain, she saw our sorrow, and she saw that we were not walking with our head up, but our head was down.
The spirit's gift to women on earth was her name, Mushkade Bishike Ikwe. Decades later, that name would be given to Ashley Shingus.
Forever, she is known in that way in the spirit realm. And forever, she will be honored, not only there, but here as well.
A second name given to Shingus by a community that adopted her without even knowing her. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
We'll have more on that story shortly. A Sikh religious organization in Winnipeg is suing its former head priest, claiming he stole more than $400,000 in donations. The lawsuit filed last week claims a volunteer at Gurdwara Kaljidar Darbar saw the former priest handling large quantities of cash in a suspicious manner. The lawsuit says security video revealed him removing cash from donation boxes at the temple. That was reported to police by the Sikh charity that operates the temple. The former priest now faces charges of theft and possession of property obtained by crime. The charges against Sukhwinder Singh are still before the court. A 21-year-old man faces a dangerous driving charge after a crash last fall where police say he was driving more than 200 kilometers an hour. It happened last October on St. Mary's Road near Gui. Investigators say the 2009 Dodge Charger was traveling 213 kilometers an hour moments before it hit a vehicle and a business. The people inside the car ran off before police arrived. Investigators say it's a miracle no one was hurt. After finally identifying the driver, police arrested him at his home Monday. Manitoba is one of the biggest potato producers in the country. Manitoba-grown spuds supply big processors like McCain and Simplot, but some growers are seeing their orders cut down. And as CBC's Mike Arsenault reports, producers could be left with piles of potatoes they can't sell.
Thousands of seed potatoes are loaded onto a truck before they get shipped to multiple growers in the province. This is Spruce Drive Farms. Owner Mark Peters says most of his customers grow potatoes for the two major processors in the province, McCain and Simplot. Last week, customers told him they would be reducing their orders. He says he's not sure if tariffs are to blame.
Some growers say that they've been cut 50%, so then they don't need all the seed that was here for them. So then it just puts us in a bit of a bind, like we're not sure what's going to happen to it.
Peter says the cut was surprising because there was a demand for seeds all winter. He says that changed in the last few weeks.
These seed potatoes are just one step in a supply chain. They're sold to growers who then sell those potatoes to large companies. If the companies reduce their order, growers need less potatoes. And this farm will have a pile of seed potatoes they can't sell.
If we can't find a home for it, then we just toss it. It goes for cattle feed, and that's it. You don't get anything for it.
Peter says this type of disruption isn't an insurable loss, so he can't make a claim to be reimbursed for his seeds. He says he's a smaller seed supplier, but some larger ones in the province could lose close to $1 million if orders continue to be cut. The Portage-La Prairie MLA has been raising concerns about the potato industry in the legislature. Jeff Bariza says potato producers are scared.
Some of the information I've heard from some potato growers is their contracts have been eliminated. So that's devastating. That's catastrophic for our province.
Bariza wants to see the provincial government step in to support the potato ag industry.
Maybe there's some kind of a crop insurance clause we can add in for things like this. I'm not sure, but hopefully we can get something figured out here soon.
The Keystone Potato Producers Association says it's in the middle of negotiating with processors to find a resolution. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Portage-La Prairie.
Now back to our top story. For years, she was known only as Mushkade Bishike Ikwe Iban, or Buffalo Woman. But now she has a name and identity. Ashley Shingoose, the missing First Nation woman now identified as the first victim of Jeremy Skibitsky's. CBC's Josh Crabb has the latest.
A drum song to mark the end of a nearly 3-year-long quest for a name and the start of a new landfill search for the remains of 30-year-old Ashley Shingoose. She was identified through new DNA evidence as the woman who up until now had been known only by her gifted name, Mushkade Bishike Ikwe Iban, or Buffalo Woman.
I just want to thank everybody for all the work.
Ashley's mom and dad, Teresa and Albert Shingoose, on the phone from St. Teresa Point, joined a news conference where police revealed their daughter as one of 4 victims of a convicted Winnipeg serial killer.
Our hearts go out to Albert and Teresa Shingoose, Ashley's parents, and all the members of St. Teresa's Point who received this unbearable news.
Winnipeg police went to the community to tell her family. The chief of the First Nation where the Shingooses live, Raymond Flett, says getting the news was hard.
It was heartbreaking, but at the same time, we welcome the news that there is a light at the end.
Jeremy Skibitsky has already been convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder and is serving 4 life sentences in the deaths of Shingoose, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and Rebecca Contois. Shingoose was reported missing in March 2022. Her family searched for her for months, but were previously told their DNA did not match a sample taken off this jacket it's believed Ashley wore. Winnipeg Police Deputy Chief Cam McKidd says investigators interviewed Skibitsky again this past December, which led them to test a pair of pants that had previously been seized in their investigation, but weren't among the items initially sent off for testing. McKidd says Ashley's DNA was on those pants.
If you combine all that and then an additional identification that was made through photos shown to Mr. Skibitsky on the 17th of December, if you put all that together, there's no doubt in our mind whatsoever that Buffalo Woman was Ashley Shingoose.
And police now say they believe her remains are in Brady Road landfill, the Premier promising there will be a search.
I cannot promise you that we will bring her home, but I can promise you that we are going to try.
A request Shingoose's family made through the chief. Her father also wanted the Premier to sing a song for his daughter, which he did.
Ashley, way, yeah, yeah, eh.
Investigators say they've combed through Skibitsky's past, including his childhood, to determine if there could be more victims. Police say there's no evidence suggesting there's anyone else. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Time now to bring in weather specialist Riley Lachuk. And Riley, hopefully people got outside today because
Oh,
See, all the colors on the map have returned.
Yep. Yeah, you called it, Brittany. Yes, double digits today for some of us across southern Manitoba, but we do have the snowfall warning in place now for the Parkland region, Riding Mountains, Swan River into the Duck Mountains. This is sort of the bullseye for that system I've been talking for the last couple of days about, looking at up to 20 centimeters of snow by the time we get to this time on Friday. The rest of us, including the city of Winnipeg, under a special weather statement. Really anywhere north of the Trans-Canada Highway, we have the risk of being grazed by the southern edge of this system, and the timing of it will be everything, which we'll go into in your full forecast in a bit. Satellite and radar, mostly sunny skies today. That helped elevate those temperatures all the way up to 11 degrees in Winnipeg this afternoon. Down to -6 overnight, partly cloudy. Those winds start to pick up out of the north as we get through the night tonight. A mix of sun and clouds first thing in the morning, and then we'll start to build that cloud in as we get into the afternoon. Looking at snow starting around the supper hour tomorrow night. We'll go into details and talk about snow when I come back in a bit, Brittany.
Riley, I don't think anybody wanted to hear that word again.
I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. Liquidation sales are now underway at Hudson's Bay as keen shoppers look to score some deals. But what happens to those spaces after? More on that straight ahead. Canadians are searching to pick up a piece of nostalgia and, of course, good deals, as all but 6 of the Hudson's Bay locations across the country start selling off inventory amid closure. Here in Winnipeg, there are 2 stores with big footprints. And when that space is vacated, many wonder what will fill it next. CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports.
It's all on the signboards. The Hudson's Bay store at CF Polo Park started liquidation sales earlier this week. Shoppers and bargain hunters flocked to find deals.
I'm just going to look around because you just kind of never know. Like if you're out there, I might find something of consequence.
Discounts ranged between 15 and 40%, some even 60%. Many shelves in the fragrance aisles cleaned out. Not all were happy with the deals.
I thought the perfumes were going to go on sale.
But then?
They're not.
Oh.
They're keeping them separate. Then I went upstairs. I wanted to get some dresses, look at dresses, because I've bought dresses here before. And not yet. I'll come back again.
And some expected better buys.
I'm hoping to find some good clothes, and if there's an empty clothing rack, I might even get that.
At Polo Park, Hudson's Bay occupies more than 200,000 square feet spread over 3 floors. With such a large space left vacant, many wonder what will fill it.
Gym or some office spaces, I don't know. Some maybe even residential, maybe fill it in for low-income housing.
They can bring Simpson Sears back. Because it was on the other side, and I used to go there all the time. So
Okay.
I think it would that space would have to be broken down into, many uses. But exactly what, I'm not so sure.
Retail analyst Bruce Winder says nowadays consumers like malls to be more of an experiential place than just for shopping. He says the Hudson's Bay space should be filled up, keeping that in mind.
Landlords will have to probably cut it up into at least 3 to 6 units minimum and try to lease that. And if that doesn't work, like I said, they might look at unconventional means like car dealerships, pickleball courts, and things like that.
CBC reached out to both malls, but they were not ready to comment on their plans for using that space in the future. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A new law to crack down on impaired driving in Manitoba is being called weak. The family of Jordan Reimer, a woman killed by a drunk driver in 2022, say the government is dismissing their attempts to make the bill stronger. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze live in the newsroom. Ian, what's the Reimer family saying?
They're saying that if you killed someone while driving impaired, you should never get to drive again. Legislation introduced by the NDP government is proposing stricter penalties. For instance, if you've been convicted twice of impaired driving causing injury or death within a 10-year period, you'd get a lifetime ban from driving. Now, the Reimer family says this doesn't go far enough. 24-year-old Jordan died in 2022 when the driver of a pickup truck ran a stop sign, slamming into her car. Jordan's mother, Karen Reimer, says that impaired drivers who killed someone don't deserve another chance to drive.
I think that is ludicrous. I think that why are we giving people a second kick at the can to kill somebody? I say one and done. You kill somebody, the first time, you don't get your license back. The suspension should be a lifetime suspension.
The PC's justice critic agrees.
Jordan's family won't be able to go dress shopping with her. They won't be able to see her family because she wanted to be a mother. She wanted to have a future in education and getting her master's degree. All of those things is a lifetime sentence for a family. So, I have a lot less sympathy for people that kill somebody of a result of their choice.
The Reimer family proposed changes to the legislation during a committee hearing last night, but the government rejected them.
So, Ian, clearly support for a lifetime driving ban in those cases. Why does the government want this?
Well, Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says a ban like that may not hold up in court.
A lifetime suspension after a first offense could be seen as a disproportionate response to the pursuit of having safer roads, which again is the focus of this bill, the Highway Traffic Act, and making our roads safer.
The Justice Minister is hoping that this bill still gets unanimous support. He says it will make a difference. And on a final note, the PCs say they're fully on board with searching the Brady landfill for the remains of Ashley Shingoose. While in government, the party is remembered for opposing the landfill search for the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron. That, of course, was a controversial decision that was strongly rebuked. However, earlier this month, interim leader Wayne Owasco apologized, and on Wednesday, he said looking for Ashley Shingoose is the right thing to do. Brittany.
All right, thank you. That's CBC's Ian Fraze. Well, if you use the Louise Bridge as part of your commute, you may have to make some other plans this week. The bridge will close in both directions on Friday from 9 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. You'll have to find a different route, of course. The closure is to accommodate repairs. Drivers can use either the Provencher or Disraeli bridges. Pedestrian access will be available on the west sidewalk. Riley's back in now. And Riley, this is one of those times where we say you are just the messenger. We love you. We might not love your forecast. Just hold on to today, because today was really beautiful.
In true fashion, March is going out like a lion.
Yep.
Big roaring lion. We'll explain it. Let's get into it, because you can already start to see the beginnings of this system on satellite and radar. Cloud cover is starting to form. This is the start of that area of low pressure forming in Alberta that will bring us some snow over the course of Thursday, even into Saturday morning for some of us into northwestern Ontario in particular. Here's another area of low pressure. This did bring some snow to the Island Lake region, into Gillam, even Barons River picking up a few flurries through the afternoon. So that's exiting as we get through the night tonight. Mostly clear tonight, partly cloudy skies, but by the time we get to the morning hours, we do start to see that cloud cover starting to build into the west and the beginnings of that system starting to move through Saskatchewan. So by late afternoon, I've stopped it here at 4 o'clock. You can start to see the first edges of that snow making its way into Westman, into the Parkland, even into the Northern Interlake. The low itself sinks south of the border, but the northern flank of this snow spreads well up into northern Saskatchewan, so a pretty broad system. By the evening, we're starting to see some of that moving into the Winnipeg region as well, so I'd say by around supper time, do expect to start to get into some periods of snow across southern Manitoba. Anywhere north of the Trans-Canada Highway, I mean, we're still seeing some disagreement in the forecast models of where exactly this bullseye is, but certainly along the Trans-Canada and north, I would expect that we would see some periods of snow as we get through Thursday night into Friday, even some snow lingering into northwestern Ontario into Saturday morning. So best guess in terms of accumulation, we'll time this out for you into the day on Saturday. Again, that bullseye where we have those snowfall warnings in place for the Parkland, the Duck, the Riding Mountains, upwards of 20 centimeters. Even some of those higher elevations likely seeing into that 25, 30 centimeter range by the time we get to Saturday morning. These are probably pretty fair estimates along the Trans-Canada Highway. 5 to 10 centimeters is what I'm saying for Winnipeg. Closer to 10 to 15, though, into the Interlake. So really a pretty narrow band of some heavy snow, but any shift in this north or south, and these numbers will change pretty considerably for places like Winnipeg and into northwestern Ontario. So we are looking at some accumulating snow by the time we get to this time on Saturday. Tomorrow, waking up to -6 in Winnipeg, -8 and 10s back into the Parkland region. We get up to freezing for both Thursday and Friday, and then Brittany, some colder air finds its way in after that, and we're back into more winter-like temperatures by Monday.
All right. Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, we have much more to come right after this. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us. Liberal leader Mark Carney kicked off day 4 of campaigning in Canada's auto sector heartland to unveil a $2 billion proposal to protect the industry.
Today, I'm announcing that the new Liberal government will create the Strategic Response Fund. And this is a $2 billion fund that will protect the jobs of workers affected by President Trump's tariffs. But it'll do much more than that. It will fortify the entire Canadian auto supply chain.
Carney says the money would be used to boost the auto sector's competitiveness and help workers gain additional expertise in the industry. Speaking in front of the Ambassador Bridge connecting Canada to the U.S., he also promised to build an all-in-Canada manufacturing network to reduce how often car parts cross the border. The announcement comes ahead of Donald Trump's threat to impose more reciprocal tariffs on April 2nd. Carney made that announcement several hours before Trump signed an executive order slapping a 25% tariff on all non-American-made cars. That comes into effect on April 2nd.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We start off with a 2.5% base, which is what we were at, and we go to 25%.
Now, at a campaign stop in southern Ontario, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre took aim at Carney, accusing the Liberal leader of hiding his assets in tax havens.
He thinks that taxes are just for the little people, not for big shot bankers like him. This is exactly the wrong kind of experience we need in a prime minister, and the worst kinds of conflicts of interest.
Poilievre has mentioned Brookfield several times on the campaign trail. Carney was an executive at the asset management company. 2 funds that he co-chaired were registered in Bermuda, but it's not clear whether those funds included any of Carney's personal assets. Carney has called Poilievre a, quote, conspiracy theorist. He says the funds were registered in Bermuda to avoid double taxation. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has outlined his plan for taxes if the party forms government. Speaking in Hamilton, he promised to eliminate the GST on some essential items if elected, and says he would cut the basic personal exemption or income tax for low and middle income earners.
Our plan helps middle-class folks the most, and the difference is that we've noticed from the other plans that are out there, the Liberals and Conservatives, their plan is one that helps millionaires the most.
Singh says the exemption would help Canadians more than tax cuts promised by the other major party leaders. The NDP is now a distant third in the polls and faces an uphill battle. Recent numbers show some of the lowest levels of support for the party in years. In almost every federal election, seniors vote in the greatest numbers of any demographic. So party leaders do their best to woo them. Alexander Silberman has more.
This will save a working senior up to $1,300.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre pitching tax cuts for seniors at a campaign stop in Montmagny, Quebec.
And I will see to it the system rewards hard work by people of all ages.
The Conservatives outlining their plan to help working seniors, allowing them to earn up to $34,000 tax-free and keep savings in RRSPs until age 73. Poilievre is also pledging to keep retirement at age 65.
No senior should be living in poverty.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh promising to raise the guaranteed income supplement and disability benefit.
You cry now, but please I don't know.
His party also promising an increase to the tax-free income amount, up to $19,000.
Some of the poorest and most vulnerable are literally struggling to put food on the table and are living in poverty. It would lift them out of poverty immediately.
With the backdrop of the Ambassador Bridge, Liberal leader Mark Carney focusing today on the Canadian economy. He was in Windsor, Ontario, the country's automotive capital, announcing a promise for a $2 billion strategic response fund to support workers hit by U.S. tariffs.
This is going to go directly to companies to make investments to build Canada strong. And that's the message. So it's not about waiting until the Americans become more reasonable. It's about acting now.
Amid the ongoing trade war, the stress on the economy is continuing to shape this election campaign, with many older Canadians feeling pinched by the cost of living. Affordability will be a big issue as they watch party platforms. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Ottawa.
With the election on the horizon, Canada's voting system is being called into question yet again. Justin Trudeau called abandoning electoral reform his biggest regret as Prime Minister. But is it possible to pull one off in time for the federal election? CBC's Ashley Fraser reports.
Is it possible for Canada's voting system to change in time for this federal election?
No, it isn't. It wouldn't be possible.
So why is that? First, we have to look at the system that's currently in place. A term you've probably heard, first past the post. It's a system Canada's used for over 150 years. In an election, the candidate with more votes than any other candidate wins a given riding, even if they don't have a majority of the votes. The idea of changing the system, or what's called electoral reform, is not new. On one of our recent videos, a lot of you shared that you want a different way of voting in the federal election. The idea was even promised by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in 2015. And when he stepped down, he called abandoning electoral reform his greatest regret.
I do wish that we'd been able to change the way we elect our governments in this country so that people could simply choose a second choice or a third choice on the same ballot.
Trudeau said while running for Liberal Party leader in 2013 that he was in favour of the ranked ballot system, which is how we vote for Canadian political party leaders. The other system that could be used is called proportional representation. It's used by over 90 countries around the world. And like the name suggests, it's the idea that the percentage of votes is proportional to the number of seats in the House of Commons. That can be done in a few different ways. In Ireland, they use proportional representation with a single transferable vote, where voters rank a list of candidates in order of their preference.
If a political party feels that it has a strong showing in a particular constituency, it might run two candidates. I, as a voter, not only have a choice of voting for the party that I prefer, but I can also vote for the candidate within that party that I prefer.
One voter I spoke to says he likes proportional representation because they can lead to coalition governments.
It means that people have to stop playing games and work together to get anything done. We don't need the leader of the Conservative Party or the leader of the New Democratic Party wasting their time and energy criticizing the party in power.
But it can also lead to instability as small parties can have more influence. So back to our original question, why isn't reform achievable for this upcoming election? For one, it's a pretty big change that could take years and could involve a referendum or a citizens' assembly. In New Zealand, they used a referendum on whether to change the system from first past the post in 1992.
They then changed their system and then they held a referendum on whether to keep it. And that took multiple election cycles to do.
For that to happen, the government in power needs to be on board.
We've had historical examples in the past in Canada of governments changing their voting systems. 3 provincial governments changed their voting systems from first past the post to mixed systems.
Last year, a motion in the House of Commons called on the federal government to establish a citizens' assembly on electoral reform, but that motion failed to pass. We reached out to the main political parties in Canada about their thoughts on electoral reform. The Liberal and Conservative parties did not get back to us by our deadline. The Green Party told us that they strongly believe that the first past the post system should be changed into a proportional voting system where every vote counts. We also spoke to the NDP critic for democratic reform. They specifically support mixed member proportional representation, where someone is voted in locally and regionally to better represent the parties in the House of Commons. So what are your thoughts about electoral reform? Email us at ask@cbc.ca.
Hundreds of people have taken to the streets of Gaza this week to demand Hamas relinquish power. Angry demonstrators marched through the streets of Gaza City on Wednesday, the day before a similar protest took place 10 kilometers north. The protest erupted when Israel ordered the evacuation of parts of the city. That order came after members of Islamic Jihad fired rockets at Israel. Masked men dispersed the crowd using violence, even assaulting some demonstrators. Hamas accused demonstrators of being traitors. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has denied texting war plans to a journalist as part of a group chat. He says the information that was accidentally shared with the magazine editor included only, quote, attack plans. Still, the magazine has released text messages that include classified information, including the names of CIA agents, targeted locations, and other sensitive information. That has Democrats demanding resignations. Richard Madden has more.
I would characterize this messaging thread as a policy discussion, a sensitive policy discussion.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt trying to contain the fallout after yet another stunning round of text messages show Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sharing specific military attack plans in Yemen that inadvertently included a journalist to the secret group chat.
There was no classified information transmitted. There were no war plans discussed.
So in response to those denials, reporter Jeffrey Goldberg published more screen grabs from the group chat showing attack plans were discussed. These messages appear to show the defense secretary sharing the timing, the type of aircrafts, and weapons to be used in airstrikes against Houthi militias in Yemen mere hours before it happened. And on the chain were the vice president, secretary of state, and other top intelligence leaders, all texting through third-party messaging app Signal.
Obviously, someone made a mistake. Someone made a big mistake and added a journalist. Nothing against journalists, but you ain't supposed to be on that thing.
Trump's national security advisor has since admitted he accidentally invited Goldberg to their secret group chat. On Capitol Hill, Democrats are furious, demanding resignations.
This text message is clearly classified information. Secretary Hegseth has disclosed military plans as well as classified information. He needs to resign immediately.
As the White House tries to deflect and deny, Democrats are demanding investigations, saying if the app had been compromised by an adversary, the lives of American troops in the operation could have been jeopardized. Richard Madden, CBC News, Washington.
After the break, this forest could be saved from the chopping block. We'll have more on the push to save it straight ahead. Stay with us. A long-running battle to save a forest may have reached a turning point. A developer has purchased a plot of land in South Winnipeg known as the Sumka Forest. One city councillor says this presents a chance to create a legacy project. CBC's Cameron McLean reports.
These trees may have found a reprieve. Where once people feared the Sumka Forest could vanish in the face of development, now a land purchase has raised hopes for those working to preserve it. Nature advocates have fought for more than a decade to try to preserve the Sumka Forest due to its valuable habitat, like the Seine River. The city of Winnipeg has even tried to buy the land, but the negotiations stalled. Now a city councillor says he's confident a deal has been reached to preserve at least part of the forest. Developer Qualico bought the Sumka property, a 60-acre former farm south of the perimeter, about a third of which is covered by forest. St. Vital councillor Brian Mays led 2 unsuccessful efforts to buy the land.
I've been on this issue since I first got here in 2011, so I'd love to have seen the city buy it, but we could never put that together, so I'm glad a developer who I think really wants to save that forest has purchased that package.
Mays says the chance to preserve Sumka is especially important, given challenges trying to save other forested areas, like the nearby LeMay Forest along the Red River.
And it's something my children and hopefully my grandchildren, if they ever exist, can enjoy. So I'm very pleased that it's I think going to be, maybe not every single tree preserved, but the Qualico wants to preserve the forest.
A representative of Qualico told CBC News a land development process will take several years. Plans for the site include housing, services, and green space. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Noticed some snow on the ground in Cameron's pack there. And
so
guess
a little bit
what?
more coming.
I was just going to say, unfortunately, there's more coming.
I hope you haven't taken your snow tires off yet.
No. But I bet you some people have.
Yeah. I've got a special treat, though. Before we get into the snow, here's a special treat for you. We have a birthday to celebrate. This is Squeegee. Having a nap. Thank you, Kim, for sending this picture. And by the way, BJ, who's also known as Squeegee, is 13 years old. So, wow, happy birthday. Keep sending your pets to talkback@cbc.ca. I love to see them all. And yes, your birthday forecast into Thursday, looking at a cloudy sky by the time we get to the late afternoon. Temperatures around the freezing mark, and then we'll start to see that snow moving into the Red River Valley as we get later into the afternoon, into the early evening. So we'll time that out in your provincial forecast in a moment. Here's what's happening with our upper level winds. You can notice area of high pressure to the south. This is driving some very warm conditions up into Montana, Colorado, so bringing some Pacific moisture and some warm Pacific air to that part of the continent. Low pressure bringing more rounds of rain into British Columbia, and that's what's sort of spinning off and creating some of the snow that we're seeing on the prairie provinces as we get through the next couple of days. A little bit of Pacific energy coming our way. Temperatures right now, 10 degrees in Winnipeg and more than 6 in Brandon at the moment. We got to 11 this afternoon in Winnipeg. So our first double-digit day since early November here in Winnipeg. So I hope you enjoyed it out there, because things are changing. Even as we get into the overnight hours tonight, we'll start to see some of that cloud cover building onto the western side of the province. -7 overnight in Brandon. Some windy conditions moving into the parkland. So overnight winds 30 gusting 50 out of the northeast for places like Dauphin into Swan River. Even Peguis looking at some gusty winds overnight at -11 overnight tonight. And some colder air to the north as we see a ridge starting to build in behind that system. So -29 overnight into Dooley Lake. Tomorrow getting up to -16 by the afternoon. Slight chance of a few flurries to the afternoon hours for the Paw into Flin Flon. Very slim chance some of that makes it by the afternoon, at least, as far to the east as Grand Rapids, but temperatures in the minus single digits for the most part tomorrow. In the south, that cloud has started to build in by the morning hours already for much of Westman into the Parkland. That will hold temperatures back as we get through the day, but temperatures close to or above the freezing mark the further east you go. And as we get into the afternoon, you can see by 4 o'clock that snow starting into the Parkland region. That will make its way southeast as we get through the day tomorrow. So, Brittany, we're looking at snow by the time we get to the evening hours tomorrow.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, they've been heralded as one of Canada's most prolific and outspoken punk bands. After a long hiatus, Winnipeg's Propagandhi has released a new song with a strong political message. CBC's Jim Agapito sat down with the band.
arguably one of the biggest political punk bands in the world, released their first song in 8 years. And guess what? They're from Winnipeg. I went down to Propaganda's Jam Space to talk about the new song, their upcoming album, and the state of worldly affairs. You just wrote the song At Peace, and it's your first song you've released in 8 years. What was the writing process like for that song?
You know, like Chris and I, you know, like we pick each other up, start talking about everything that's bothering us, get here, see Jord, start it all over again right where we started. You know what I mean? Then everyone's all amped up, and then we start practicing, you know, and the ideas start going around, and then stuff starts showing up in lyrics, you know, and like you can see yourself, like I can see like us reflected in Chris's lyrics. He could probably see himself reflected in my lyrics. And
like if there was a formula or something, it'd be so much easier, but it's just everything's such a struggle for us. Like we have to struggle against our own musical inability and our own inability to string words together and even probably spell or use punctuation to get to where we want to go. By the time you're done, you have no idea how you got there.
Maybe not quite driving, but a boy, I am at peace.
How then have you changed as a band in the last 8 years?
Well, the ravages of time.
Yeah.
On us.
Yeah, I mean, we've aged quite a bit,
yeah.
And it has repercussions.
After a bunch of decades of that wear and tear, I kind of went backwards and then sort of reevaluated, okay, lighter is maybe okay, like, you know, make things less enduring on the body and then it's less enduring on the mind.
I think we've always had this tendency to ratchet up the speed even when it wasn't necessary, just to impart this sense of energy and power that appeals to us, mostly because of the music we grew up on. But on this record, I felt like we were consciously trying to let's dial it back and then maybe dial it back even more out of our comfort zone and see what we could do.
How does your music reflect today's political climate?
Maybe it less reflects like a current political climate and more it's like the psychology represented on the record is a product of an ongoing political climate that's been going on since we've become aware of how the world actually works and going back hundreds and hundreds of years.
The idea of how using art and music as a form of resistance in today's, day and age, why is that so important to do?
Hopefully it inspires somebody to get involved in their community or go do something about it, or even just pick up someone's spirit somewhere if they're feeling like they're giving up or,
You have to figure out how to live a somewhat meaningful life. I find living under the current system we've been born into pretty humiliating. You have to find some hope or purpose in a world that's so chaotic and currently on such a downswing that it's very hard to know what to do. Ultimately, that's what we've always done.
How does then music help those situations if it does that at all?
I think the reaction so far to the song At Peace, there has been a sense that people are seeing themselves in the song in terms of the psychic toll that world events have taken on them. And sometimes just hearing somebody put your internal chaotic thoughts into words that resonate, you just get this little lift, just knowing that somebody else is seeing the world for what it is instead of the world for what it isn't.
How do you navigate this world where you have corporate interests into the music and stuff?
It's very difficult because those companies have essentially won, and there's no real viable underground sort of alternate sort of routes that you can go and just plug yourself into. And we're at the point where we're above ground, everything that we do, and so it's very tricky. And I think we're just trying to figure out the least crappy ways to kind of move ourselves ahead.
Why do you think a punk band from Manitoba has had such a big global reach?
I think being from Winnipeg is more about not being from Southern California than anything else. It's just the way people approach things here in general, at least in the music scene, how we came up Winnipeg, people were not really looking to stomp on each other to climb the ladder. They're just playing music for the pleasure of the endeavor.
Our goal is to spread empathy of some kind. That's the goal, I think, since the start of the whole thing. That's what it's about, you know? It's not just for the sake of like, I'm a punk, you know, let's all be united, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need to be united with punks and stuff. If there's someone thoughtful, it doesn't matter who they are, you know?
If there's one thing Propaganda can do, it's amp up their listeners with their songs and riffs. From an undisclosed jam spot in Winnipeg, Jim Agapito, CBC News.
After the break, how a BC musician is bringing her community together. More on that straight ahead. Stay with us.
I hope you enjoyed the day today, because this is kind of like the calm before the storm. As we get through Thursday, we'll see clouds increasing as we get through the afternoon hours, and snow in the Red River Valley, at least starting through the early evening. but into the afternoon, back into Westman. Winds tomorrow do pick up northeast 20, gusting up to 40 by the time we get into the afternoon hours tomorrow. So we're up to the freezing mark for Friday once again as well. General 5 to 10 centimeters in the Red River Valley, but we could see some pockets of higher accumulation. Then some colder air behind that, so -4 by the time we get to Sunday. Monday at -2, -1 on the way for Tuesday, and we start to see a bit more cloud building in and a chance of showers, and +4 by the time we get to Wednesday. Well, defiantly joyful. That is how a musician describes a song-catching circle in BC's Okanagan.
She created the circle as a way for her community to come together. CBC's Kimberly Davidson has our daily lift.
Humbly we walk here. The song-catching circle often begins with this song. It's called Humbly. We bless this rock. It's a land acknowledgement adapted for the Okanagan Silt people. In Summerland, dozens of people have gathered together at the local Baptist church. They're blending their voices in song while finding fellowship and inspiration.
I throw a song out, you catch it, and then we sing all together.
I'm just fine, just as I am. That's something first-timer Fallon Palm appreciates.
I like how Yanti is so intentional with her song choices.
Everybody singing. And those song choices are intentional. They come from the Ubuntu Choirs Network. It's believed that the Ubuntu spirit reminds us that what defines us as individuals can only be achieved through our relationships with others.
I find that there's so many people who silence themselves. It's nice to unleash your voice in community. It makes a big difference.
An act of courage that is defiantly joyful. Yeah. Kimberly Davidson, CBC News, Summerland.
I love it. And I'm not going to sing for you ever.
Oh, that's okay. I like you anyway. You know, it is like just an example of how music can bring us all together.
Exactly.
I used to be a choir kid.
Okay, Riley will sing. Maybe tomorrow.
We'll see.
Have a wonderful night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Good. No promise.
There you go. You can do it. We can get like a